Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second meeting of 2020 and of the California Broadband Council. It's great to have everyone online, and I wanted to make sure everybody have a chance to know that this is a 1-hour meeting in the midst of a lot of activities going on. And because it's 1 hour and it's on video, this meeting will be recorded. And so that therefore, just we want to make sure that it's aware to all of the attendees of the meeting. With that, if I could have our moderator to go ahead and change the slide into all of our council members who are able to join today. And we're going to start the meeting by doing a roll call by Michael.
Thank you, Amy. So let me begin with the roll call. I'll start with you. Ms. Tong.
Here.
Ms. Guzman Aceves.
Here.
Mr. Mallon.
Here.
Mr. Winkler. Mr. Winkler.
You're muted. Oh.
Mr. Winkler?
Give it a.
Okay, I'm here.
Excellent. Mr. Jameson?
Here.
Ms. Pepper?
Here.
Ms. McPeak?
Here.
Mr. Barajas?
Here.
Ms. Neville Bonilla?
Here.
Ms. Snyder? Ms. Snyder.
Let's move to the next member.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Dr. Williams.
Here.
Okay, thank you. That is the roll call.
All right, thank you, everyone. We have a quorum, and let's go ahead and proceed. Once again, this is our second meeting, and we are purposely keeping this to a short 1 hour today. And knowing that we're going to be asking the council member for approval for a longer full-length meeting, perhaps in July. And that's for the obvious reason we are in the midst of pandemic response, and I know everybody's very, very busy. And we appreciate all of the council members, despite that busy schedule, still able to join, as this is a public meeting to allow the public to engage, in terms of all of the state's broadband initiatives. I have to add that we are literally competing with the SpaceX launch at the moment. So,
It was canceled.
And with that, we will keep all of our remarks and short and brief, but I have high confidence that the Broadband Council's update is going to be just interesting, if not more, than the SpaceX launch at the moment. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and ask each council member to present up to 3 minutes of update of all of your initiatives. After that, we do have 2 guest speakers graciously agreed to join to talk about their specific usage of broadband, especially in this pandemic time. And we welcome at that moment Mary Nicely, the Senior Advisor to Superintendent of Public Instruction, as well as Director Kim Wei, and joining us for that, Kim Wei McCoy. And so let's start with the council member update. Let's begin with Senator DGS Representative, Ms. Sarah Smith.
Hi, this is Sarah. And in terms of legislative action, the Senate Energy, Utilities, and Communications Committee completed its final policy hearing before the policy deadline for fiscal bills yesterday. There were a number of bills related to broadband. Specifically, the chair of the Senate Energy, Utilities, and Communications Committee had SB 1058, which aims to provide greater access to broadband during emergencies and disasters, and then SB 1130, which is Senator Lena Gonzalez's bill that would make modifications to the California Advanced Services Fund by expanding both the eligibility for the program in terms of the areas that are considered unserved, and then also modifying the requirements for infrastructure that would be funded through the program.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, for that. And we're going to move to Assembly Member Gibson's representative, Dr. Williams.
I have nothing to add today, just appreciative of the work of your government relations folks, and also with the chair on a matter related to a district issue. Also appreciative of the work that CE has been doing in terms of connecting more of our districts in the 64th Assembly District and throughout the state, particularly low income minority serving school districts at the K through 12 level related to broadband access. So again, we're just appreciative of the work and happy to hear your updates and reports.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And I understand the Governor's Tribal Advisor, Ms. Christina Snyder, is joining over the phone. So if I could have Christina to provide an update, please.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have anything major to update, but we are kind of focused on everything COVID. So a lot of what's been coming up in terms of the tribal communities and where they're seeing gaps, or that there's some major infrastructure issues that have always been there, but in times like this are exacerbated. We've been working to connect them with both state resources and private resources to get students and employees and government workers the access they need to be able to telework and social distance, physical distance. But we're seeing in some areas, because of these critical infrastructure gaps, providing a hotspot where there's no cell service, and providing Chromebooks and providing laptops is just not really cutting it. So I think that it's exposing, or at least making it more pressing, these gaps. And so we're looking at ways where we can be more supportive in some sort of larger federal effort to alleviate these issues. Given that it looks like a lot of what we're doing as a state and as a population is shifting toward a more mobile population, or at least work from home population. So that's my update. Interested in hearing what everyone else has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I also wanted to take this moment to let those of you that are joining online, watching this MS Teams live event, if you have questions, you can go ahead and take the opportunities to go ahead and put your question in the Q&A box. And then as soon as all the council members finish their update, and after the presentation by our two guest speakers, we will be able to address the questions. Thank you. With that, let's move to Department of Education, Jerry Winkler.
Yes, Jerry Winkler, Department of Education. Some of the things that we've been working on are verifying the needs of the districts we've contacted. Well over 1,500 schools, some survey responders, and a survey went out early on to some of the small school districts to find out exactly what their needs were, and to verify, and actually to try and understand some of the stories that they're having right now. We've had one principal that said he's got a teacher that's contacted 33 of her students, 28 of which have a connection. She's talking with each student one-on-one Zoom for about an hour a week. But the 5 that do not have broadband connections, she's actually calling them on the phone and talking to them on the phone. So the teachers are really working at it. We also had a group of 5 students that invited their teacher to their ring to get help from her on a particular activity that they were working on. So it's going both directions, which is very impressive for some of these students. But the stories are about the needs for some of the rural areas, the smalls, etc. So it's very, very important that we respond to those needs and get the connectivity out to them as quickly as possible. Also, just real quick, we're working with other state national education organizations, people like K-12 HSN, the CNIC organization, Small School Districts Association, CETF, CASF, CETA, CCSSO on a national level. They're also providing states, the states are providing direction for CCSSO to work with the FCC and the US Ledge for broadband support, working on things like the CPUC to get local assistance to the schools, subsidies on school district mobile connections, that type of thing. And then also the $5 million grant for districts for student devices. There's been many grants and many initiatives, and Mary and I will be talking about those in a little bit later.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jerry. Let's move on to CPUC Commissioner Guzman Chivas.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Apologies for not being able to work through this little technical issue here, but I can see you guys. Well, we've been pretty busy. As Jerry mentioned, we've taken the opportunity to really work through looking at our funding programs and really trying to see how we can best partner with our sister agencies, and particularly CDE. There's just a few highlights. One is our adoption funding program that we approved $5 million to work with CDE for prioritizing small and rural school districts and medium to get them the actual kind of hard devices, including tablets. And it's been a really eye-opening, I'm sure, as was mentioned. There's such a great need, and this small bit of funding is only going to hopefully reach about, we estimate, 20,000 gadgets, be they tablets or something else. And we know the need is far beyond, I don't know what your latest numbers are, Jerry, but close to 500,000. In addition, we also provided some changes to, or clarification on the California Teleconnect Fund, which is another public purpose program that's funded by all of our phone bills. And this direction essentially allowed the recipients, which are K through 12 recipients, to use additional funds. And I won't go into a lot of the details on how the funding works, but essentially, thus far, we've been able to fund approximately 250,000 hotspots with that money. And we still have the application open until the end of the month. So we'll hopefully see a few. And that's not, that service will only be for a few months. So again, these are interim solutions and trying to kind of stretch these public purpose programs, but it's certainly not the end solution. Also, I did want to update you guys on the California Advanced Service Infrastructure funding. As you know, I think someone mentioned Lena Gonzalez has a bill on this program. And just want to highlight that right now we're looking, our last round of solicitations, over 500 million worth of infrastructure projects, and we have less than 300 million in the fund. So we're going to obviously need to continue to talk to the legislature and the governor's office about the continued need for infrastructure funding, but that was not a surprise to all of us, but just a very sharp reality check as we are in this situation to know that we already have far more demand for the infrastructure funding than we actually have funding for. And finally, the Lifeline proceeding, which Commissioner Sharoma leads up, is a longstanding program. And one of the things that we've been looking at, and the legislature has been looking at, is the need for that program to truly be reformed, to focus more on the Lifeline service needs of broadband. As you know, that program started long ago on the voice needs, the old copper lines, and it's transformed into a cell phone program primarily. But now what we are looking in Commissioner Shiroma's leadership is, does the Lifeline program really need to focus on broadband service? So those are some of the things that we have going on, and really look forward to the continued collaboration through the council to take those further and to take even broader steps. Thank you.
And Amy, we do have a question for Christina. If you'd like to entertain that now.
If I may just keep that for a little bit, I want to make sure we get through the council members update, and then we're going to come back for questioning. Thank you, Michael, for prompting that. Thank you, Martha, for that update. If we can move to Cal OES, Pat.
Hi, good afternoon. On the lighter side, SpaceX obviously found out that they had a conflict with this, so they scrubbed the mission to T-minus 17 minutes. So with that, so on the more serious side, I've got three initiatives to relate to you. One is the Next Generation 911 project. Obviously, the COVID-19 situation has kind of complicated our deployment because of some limitations in being able to access the public safety answering points. That's been delayed about 4 to 6 weeks, and we're doing our best to make up on that. Here at the Sequoia Pacific campus, we've established a Next Generation 911 demonstration and test lab. We have equipment for 2 full PSAPs already installed, and we have equipment for a cloud-based PSAP or call answering equipment to be installed. Under the NG911 project, there are 4 major initiatives moving forward. One is an IP circuit installation into 438 PSAPs. Then followed by the PSAP, the actual installation of the equipment, connection to the carrier, and then testing of the NG911 core services from each of those 438 PSAPs. Text to 911, which is something that's been of a great interest to the governor's office, particularly during this pandemic, with unfortunately the increase in some of the domestic violence situations. Text to 911, we have a Text to 911 active today in 289 of the 438 PSAPs. We have 69 that are pending deployment within the next few days. And then we have 80 PSAPs that are kind of a little slow in making a decision, but they've got to be complete by January 1st of 2020, or 2021. So if they don't make a decision, unfortunately, we're going to have to make a decision for them. Location accuracy, which is another big essential part of the NG911 services. We have completed the GIS update with the goal of having that fully operational this summer. 370 of the PSAPs are active today with that location accuracy, and with that comes the ability to actually initiate a session, a texting session from the PSAPs. So that is now in 370 of the PSAPs. Moving on to FirstNet, we are pushing forward with the list of the critical coverage areas. We identified a number of critical sites throughout the state, such as police stations and power stations and dams, etc. They're moving forward to cover all of those, and as they roll out the subsequent years of deployment, we're pushing forward for coverage in the fairgrounds. And one of the other essential that's part of that is in the upgrade of the state's microwave network of CAPSNet, which is the California Public Safety Network. That's being upgraded to MPLS technology, and that will be put in with a microwave shot into every PSAP. Last item I have is Senate Bill 670, which has to do with legislation that was signed into law in last year. It established a community isolation notification requirement to all the carriers, whether it be landline, VoIP, IP, or cellular. They have to report within 30 minutes if 50% of the service population in a zip code is without service, as I said, for more than 30 minutes. They have to report it to us so that we can make notice to the jurisdiction, and they can deploy resources based on the fact that somebody or nobody can call 911 in at least half of their jurisdiction. The initial draft of that regulation was completed and released. It resulted in some comments from the industry, which were, and we edited the regulations. The amended draft was released for a 15-day review. That 15 days ends today, and the statute requires the regulations be in place by July 1st. Any questions?
Very good for that, Patrick. And if there's questions from the audience, go ahead and submit, and we will make sure that those gets addressed after all of the members update. Thank you for that, Pat. Let's move to Calsta, Representative Lori Pepper.
Thanks so much. We actually have a lot going on right now. Last meeting, I think we all met Monica Crest-Worcester, who was our interim broadband coordinator at Caltrans. I guess unfortunately for us, but fortunately for Monica, she has moved on to a new position within Caltrans, so not far. And although her time with the broadband project was short, it was extraordinarily effective. And so I'm just going to run through a few things that have been happening. Through her leadership, she has created and engaged a group of executive champions within Caltrans. She started an internal action plan in order to set goals and create the strategies to achieve those goals. She was able to move the broadband website to a place on the homepage within the Working with Caltrans page in order to make it easier to find for interested parties as well as the general public. And the plan is to update that website to be more user-friendly. Of course, with the current situation, that is pending budget availability, but it will also include more information about partnership opportunities. And so we expect that there will be a personnel announcement hopefully really soon. It's just moving through the rigors of the HR process. The other thing I wanted to update everyone on, I know I've had a lot of great conversations with many people on the council, and I really appreciate everyone's support. In Sacramento, we're doing a proof of concept to create mobile hotspots using currently unused transit buses. So we're using 10 SACRT buses to provide broadband access in digital deserts around Sacramento. This project is really built on partnerships, primarily with the City of Sacramento, SACRT, Sacramento Public Libraries, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Cradlepoint, Aruba, and Sierra. Also, we have partnered with many community groups, school districts, the California Census, and others in order to help us amplify the fact that the program exists and the project exists and that it's there to be used, as well as determine the best locations. And we're also working with many of them in order to create events for use. And the goal at the end of the proof of concept, which will end on June 30th, is to create a playbook of best practices for other transit agencies or other entities throughout the state to replicate and scale for their communities. And I am excited to say that, many of them have already reached out within the state as well as around the country. So we're excited about the potential for what we're doing, and as well as other use cases to help with, wildfire base camps, outdoor events, and many others. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Lori. And I do want to echo that the mobile bus, I don't know if that's the right term, was getting a lot of immediate attention. So congratulations on that. And thank you. By the time we have our July meeting, I think it would be great to see if we can, get a presentation on the playbook that you all have been developed and share with all.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the Department of Food and Ag. Arturo, great to have you joining us.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for letting us provide an update, and thanks to my colleagues for sharing those updates. We at CDFA and our pandemic response very quickly focused on the food supply and the challenges that occurred just due to the pandemic. I think we at CDFA have done a good job of highlighting the need for broadband in rural areas for our growers and ranchers in the state of California, and I think that was ever so highlighted during this pandemic. So we continue to work closely on that, providing a response for that. Also at CDFA, as many of you are aware, we oversee the fairgrounds, the network of fairs, but specifically those state-affiliated fairs, and they were really tapped in for COVID response from the get-go, and due to some of the work that's been done and data that's been provided about broadband at fairgrounds, for the first time we were really able to report out which fairs are being used, but also use broadband as a metric and be able to share that in decision making that went into activating some of these fairgrounds for a number of uses around COVID response. So that was a really big step forward in making sure that we have the data, we're using the data, and it's something that we look forward to using. And then also we've just been working cross-agency with so many of my colleagues here, and many of the initiatives that we know affect California's farmers as well as California farm workers. So we continue to provide our response, and look forward to working with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Arturo, for that. And I appreciate the update. And I also want to point out that we do have a comment that just got published to the public, and that's from Monica, who's saying that she's continue to be a point of contact until there's a replacement. So Monica, thank you for that dedication, and I really appreciate both Calsta agency and Caltrans putting a great emphasis on broadband. Thank you. All right, so with that, let's move to DGS and Brett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brent Jamison with the Department of General Services on behalf of Director Daniel Kim. As you can imagine, the Department of General Services has been heavily engaged in COVID-19 response, including our procurement division that has been responsible for coordinating PPE, personal protective equipment solicitations, as well as our real estate services group that's been helping establish facilities for field hospitals. In terms of the topic of broadband, one of the things we did recently in DGS's ongoing efforts to ensure that we are getting our surplus computer equipment to the underserved is we recently partnered with the Department of Social Services, and in consultation with the Department of Technology, we issued a management memo, which is essentially a directive to state agencies trying to encourage the donation of surplus computer equipment to our foster youth who are in our California colleges and universities. That directive went out on April 13th, and since then we're operationalizing the directive. We have over 20 different colleges, universities, and junior colleges that are interested in partnering with us on this initiative, and we are meeting with numerous foster nonprofits throughout the states to try and connect those colleges with these foster organizations so that we finally get some of this surplus computer equipment in the hands of our foster youth. So that is one of the kind of broadband initiatives that we are working on right now, and we'll make sure that it is successful as time goes on. And that's what I have for DGS.
Excellent. Thank you, Brent, for that, and really appreciate DGS partnership on getting that equipment to the foster youth. And yes, and CDTU play a small role in that, but we were very, very glad to see this is continue to expand on its own. Thank you for DGS leadership on that. All right, let's move to California State Library. Anne.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the library's been engaged in a number of different activities. Just broadly speaking, to remember there are about 1,100 public library branches around the state. In a recent survey that was done of California public libraries, we know that almost 80% said that they had added virtual programming such as job coaching, story time, adult literacy, K through 12 tutoring, homework help. Some of you may have also seen libraries who are using their broadband connections now, even though the building is not open to the public, to be able to print personal protective equipment for hospitals and other essential workers in their communities. And so that's been really interesting and exciting to see. We at the State Library have been compiling some of that information. We have also been working with libraries around where and to what extent their Wi-Fi is open to the public and accessible, even though it is the public is not allowed in the buildings yet. And so we are working and have been working wonderfully with CDT and the CPUC's effort around the Wi-Fi hotspot map. We've also, with some existing funding that we've been prioritizing technical assistance, really engineering consulting to libraries to make sure that they have adequate equipment, not just for their standard connections, but also to leverage what USAC has now been clear about, that out into the parking lot is fine, right? That the Wi-Fi connection can get that far, and that if we can get, if USAC and the FCC, or if Congress requires them to, makes it allowable for libraries to have their Wi-Fi, their E-ratable connections get out into the community, that they would have the equipment to do that. So that last part is a little bit of a waiting game, because for most libraries, that's only going to be an affordable solution if USAC makes those E-ratable connections allowable for that purpose. So we are hoping that that will continue to happen. We did sign on, as I know many of you did, to a national letter for Shelby to support that. We also did at the State Library, provided the surplus equipment for the through the DGS project, and that was really exciting. And I know our folks were really excited about that. I think the big thing right now that libraries are thinking about is, even though libraries were allowed to reopen as of last week for curbside pickup, as people think about starting to reopen the buildings, we know it will be a long time before those computer labs, those spaces where people brought their own equipment in, are going to be able to be as full as they would have been. And so how do we continue providing the programming around the state? We know that whenever there's a downturn, libraries get used more and more. People come in not just for job training and coaching, but to sign up for public benefits, to get family literacy help. And so we are working with libraries and looking at potential grant opportunities to support libraries as they continue this work, and to support them in both broadband in their buildings, but also getting it out to their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. You're always so active in the library, and thank you for continuing to be such a great advocate and provide those public resources. Let's move to Sunny, representing CETF.
Thank you, Chairman Tong, and members of the Broadband Council. The California Emerging Technology Fund has been working diligently with school districts, reached out to about 105 school districts. We've been promoting the interim free offers and affordable offers by the internet service providers in a variety of ways, have actually reached more than 3 million eligible households. Lots of traffic has been generated to the website we have that will screen people. More than 30,000 folks have come actually from the California Department of Education link. And we're very pleased that in Santa Clara County, the Superintendent of Public Education, Dr. Mary Ann Dewan, actually personally wrote to 267,000 students in the county of Santa Clara, promoting the affordable offers in 3 different languages, and with available community-based organizations to provide assistance in signing up. We had the opportunity to share with the California Department of Education Superintendent Thurman's Digital Divide Task Force last Friday, the experience that we often have with trying to assist low-income families in signing up for affordable offers. The Public Utilities Commission has written to the ISPs, several other elected officials, the big city mayors have an education coalition, and the ISPs, while having really stepped up during this crisis, need to, I think, work more closely with us and just do a little bit more. We need to have advertising of the free offers and affordable offers that they can then transition to. We know from the advertising, a very small amount that we have done this year, an ad will run, particularly if it's in Spanish on television, and immediately we get called. So we want to try to step up the promotion by the internet service providers of their free introductory interim offers and affordable offers, and have the state agencies also promote those available offers to get as many people signed up as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Sunny, for that. And just to wrap up the member briefing, I will give a very brief update on what Department of Technology is doing. And thanks to the great work and leadership by Stephanie Tom and her colleagues, Sachin and Jules and Ellen Nishimoto, who oversees the California CalNet contract. The Department of Technology was able to convey a couple of check-ins with all of the internet service provider to not only get feedback from them, as well as ideas and suggestions on how to best support the state in general in responding to the pandemic, both in the broadband aspect, as well as closing the digital divide, such as donations of equipment to the area and community that need it the most. So I also want to take this opportunity to thank all of those ISP internet service providers, as well as the technology companies who have stepped up and provide those suggestions and donations to the state of California in helping to close the digital divide. Second thing that is very exciting, and it's work in progress. So by the time we have the meeting in July, not only we're going to have a much longer full-blown meeting, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to showcase this to everybody as well, is again under the leadership of Stephanie Tom, as well as working with CPUC. We have the state GEO portal are in the process being updated to reflect the various Wi-Fi hotspot that is provided. And I know many of the members from this council and others and CPUC have all contributed to that. So thank you for your guys' idea and taking the initiative. It's hard work ahead. I heard from the state geographic information system officer, like, this is really hard work, Amy, what did I get myself into? But I know it's going to pay off. And so hopefully by the time we enter into July, we'll be able to showcase that map with everyone. So with that concludes the council member update, and I want to get back to a question that was asked specifically to Christina, and thank you, Robert, for your patience on that. So Michael, why don't you go ahead and read off the question?
Yeah, the question is, Christina, are you working with any federal agencies on the tribal broadband issues?
So to answer that question, right now we're more focused on making sure that tribal governments are getting the resources they need through the federal stimulus packages to be able to make those decisions for themselves, because those are going to be, major capital investment projects with not easy solutions. And so we're trying to make sure that tribal governments are able to make those decisions, as they get resources through these stimulus packages. And so that's been our major focus, and also making sure that tribes are equipped to face the current issues. I think beyond the COVID emergency, we will be engaged in more discussions about how to get more of that capital into California, given that the issues here are different from anywhere else, and that tribal lands here are kind of have in a unique situation with especially the number of tribal governments that we have in the state. So the short answer is that right now we are working more closely with some of the public health agencies, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and a couple other agencies to meet the near-term stability goals of tribal governments and partner as best as we can on that, as well as work with Congress to help ensure that tribes are not getting left out of anything that is a priority in the immediate term to take care of the health and safety of tribal communities. In terms of capital investment projects that may take years to accomplish and completely overhaul infrastructure, I think that's something that is at the top of mind as we get out of this immediate threat of COVID.
Thank you, Christina, for that. I'm going to see if any of the council member have any comments from the previous update. If you do, go ahead and unmute yourself. We have a couple minutes before we go into the presentation phase of the meeting.
Sorry, Amy, this is Commissioner Guzman-Aceves. I just wanted to offer, I'm not sure who asked the question on the tribal governments, but we do have limited staff, but we do have staff that is focused right now on helping the tribes access, particularly want to make sure we can help them with applying for the spectrum that's been opened up to them at the FCC. And so I'm not sure if the question was somebody who's looking for any sort of technical assistance that we could certainly hook up. They can contact our office and we can try to facilitate that.
Thank you, Martha. And I think it was our audience, live audience, asking the question. So if there's any follow-up on that, feel free to go ahead and submit it through the Q&A. And also a reminder to our live audience, we do have a public comment period towards the end as well. But feel free to submit your question in the meantime so we can get you all teed up. Separately, just very quick, that wanted to also call out to Trish Kelly, who sent a note to all of the council member earlier. Thank you, Trish, continued partner and advocates, and thank you for joining this live event. All right, let's go ahead and move to our presentation portion of the meeting and start with Department of Education. Mary Nicely, Senior Advisor to the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Hi all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Sorry, I think I ran into maybe the same issue that Martha did, and I was messaging my my colleague Jerry Winkler to let him know that when we were evacuated out of our building yesterday, I forgot my video camera. So apologies for that. It was very hot and we had no power, so they sent us all out. So we've been very busy at the Department of Education dealing with digital divide issues that came upon us very quickly. And so, and we are so appreciative of the Department of Technology and CPUC for really partnering with us and my colleagues at CDE. That's day-to-day jobs. We're not calling thousands of school districts every day to find out how many laptops and hotspot devices they needed. And so we fell into a crisis that was very evident that the students that we were connecting at school were no longer connected when they got home. And so we are very fortunate to have had the very first donation come in from T-Mobile for 100,000 hotspots, and those have shipped out in the last 2 weeks. And due to the worldwide shortage of computing devices, we are catching up now and able to start making use of the actual donated funds that came in to the California Bridging the Digital Divide Fund. And so we've been able to ship out over 21,000 laptops in the last few weeks. and hoping that with the CASA funds, we can pick up another 20,000 and put use the other funds that have been donated to us. So I think it's been mentioned and recently by Sunny that the superintendent, seeing the urgency of need, decided to pull together a digital divide task force made up of a number of legislators because we know we have to tackle this from all angles. And so he is co-chairing his digital divide task force with Senator Leyva. He has Senator McGuire, Assemblymember Wood, Aguirre Curry, and Santiago and Garcia. So I think you're all familiar with them because they have all been working on issues surrounding the digital divide for quite a while. And that is why they were selected to join the superintendent on this task force. And if you saw his media check-in this morning, one of the big reasons that this was formed was to have a concerted effort to have legislators and others